Well, well. Welcome to my talk show.
Take a sip from your soul on a metaphysical milkshake.
Tasty chicken burger. Sure.
You may be a billionaire,
Yeah.
entrepreneur,
Yeah.
inventor, man extraordinaire. You're not getting any of my chicken burger.
All right. No problem. I can do without the chicken burger.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
What is it like to be named after the scent of an animal?
It certainly led to a lot of mocking in junior high.
I
that's
know
for
what
sure.
that feels like. My name
Right.
is Rainn. So,
Right.
could you imagine if you were named Rainn Musk?
Right. It's raining Musk. I mean,
You grew up in South Africa.
yeah.
You were in the army there?
No. No. I left at 17. Well, in part in order to avoid conscription into the South
so
African
you
army.
left so that you didn't have to do the army.
You know, spending 2 years suppressing black people didn't seem to be a great use of time.
I think that's probably the worst use of any human being's time.
Right.
So good for you.
Right.
Right on. Elon Musk. Draft dodger. I guess the first question is, you're the founder of Tesla Motors.
Right.
Can I have a car
Yes.
for free?
No.
What if I told you that I will not let you out of the van unless you give me a car for free? Next question. Now, what was that like when all of a sudden, like, you're a millionaire, you're working your butt off, you're creating these software companies,
Sure.
you're developing PayPal, and then all of a sudden, like, that needle goes blink, and you're a billionaire. Did you ever go, like, did you have, like, a party? Did you blow a party favor? Like, whoa! When you became
no, not really.
a billion, did your accountant call you and, like, guess what, Elon? You
No.
went from millionaire to billionaire.
Not really. No. No. I mean, it's not as though I've got like $1 billion just sitting in a bank account or something. It just means that my ownership of the companies, if you add them up, it's a couple $1 billion.
Right. It's pretty
that's
awesome
nice.
in that you earned it and you made it yourself.
Right.
and
I did not
you
inherit
created all
it.
this
Yeah, I
stuff.
did not.
And that's so cool
Right.
because people that inherit their billions, I just want to punch them in the throat.
Right. Right. I mean, actually, I do think that from a taxation standpoint, it's better if taxes are focused on it's on estate taxes when somebody dies, as opposed to taxes when somebody's living.
Okay. So you're in favor of a high estate tax.
I'm in favor of given that there's a certain amount of tax that must be raised. I think it's better to obtain that tax upon death than
Right.
during life.
I would
Because
go with that.
you know, if somebody's demonstrated that they are a good steward of capital, then they ought to have more capital in order to do more good things with the economy. But if somebody's inherited money, then they have not demonstrated that they are a good steward of capital, and so it makes less sense that they inherit money.
Also, I always think that then it urges them to not just stockpile their money, but to give it away, charitable foundations or art or gifts, or there's
Right.
all manner of things that you can do, foundations in your estate planning if
Right.
if you've stockpiled all that money.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really there to give it away. What good is it when you're rotting in the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. And also I think we want to avoid creating an aristocracy of wealth. That's where you want to avoid having entrenchment of wealth. I think that leads to stagnation of society.
And why is that?
Well, if the rules are set up such that somebody can't make headway, because the resources are constrained to a small number of people, and then they ensure that it only goes to their kids, which
Right.
is essentially the feudal system.
Right.
Then there's not much point in working hard or
Right.
trying to create great things because there's no reward for that.
And there's a lot of countries that are like that. Some say
Sure,
the United
absolutely.
States is like that, but in a lot of ways it's not really. There are a lot of countries
Yeah.
where it's locked up by, like in Haiti, there's 6 families
Right.
that own 99% of the wealth.
Right.
And the wealth is not trickling down. It's not going anywhere. It's
Right.
just staying in those families.
Right, and the United States, I think, is actually the best in the world in terms of enabling opportunity. But we need to be conscious of retaining that status.
Right on. Where you want to go? Anywhere in the universe.
Mars.
Mars.
Wow, we're there.
And you didn't even need a spaceship. You just needed a van.
Yeah.
Why did you want to go to Mars?
Well, the reason I want to go to Mars is because I think that's the best place where humanity can become a multi-planet species and a spacefaring civilization. And I think it's the most exciting place that we could go in the solar system.
Now, how would that work for people to go to Mars? Like, what would happen?
What would happen? You mean once we were there?
Well, like,
How-
describe to me that process. So a bunch of people, they get on a spaceship. What happened? Talk me through Mars travel.
Well, you need to have a big spaceship that takes you to Mars. It'll take initially 6 months to get there, although I think we can bring that down to under 3 months and maybe eventually under a month. And then you have to land on Mars and establish a base there. And initially, people would have to live in pressurized domes, but over time, you could terraform the planet and make it like Earth. So you could.
How would you terraform Mars?
You'd actually heat the planet up by emitting greenhouse gases. Kind of what we're doing on Earth. We're learning a lot about that here on Earth. So we just do that on Mars, and that would warm the planet up. It would thicken the atmosphere, and then the atmosphere on Mars is carbon dioxide. So as you grow plants, the plants would convert the carbon dioxide into oxygen.
How could you plant the first plant on Mars? How would that work?
Well, you'd have to initially have plants in a pressurized dome, transparent dome.
Mm-hmm.
But all you need is a transparent dome and a pump to pressurize it from the Mars atmosphere. So you could grow Earth plants in Mars soil.
You can grow Earth plants in Mars soil,
That's correct.
but it's cold over there on Mars, isn't it?
Right. So you have to warm it up.
You'd need a lot of down comforters over there.
Yeah, you need to. But if you have a greenhouse, sort of a transparent.
Space heaters.
Well, the greenhouse has a greenhouse effect, right? So it's just
Right.
like greenhouse.
It would
Earth.
warm it up.
Yeah, warm it up.
That's fantastic. And then what do the humans do when they're there?
Well, I think
Like
initially.
volleyball or what?
Initially, people would work on creating a Mars base and creating the infrastructure necessary to support life on Mars. So that would take a lot of effort, just as it took a lot of effort to establish the American colonies.
Now, does the ship come back?
Yeah.
When you go to Mars, are you going to go like, I'm going to die on Mars? So you take healthy people that are just going to plan on living the rest of their 30 or 40 years on Mars or something like that?
Well, most people would actually, I think most people would go to Mars to move to Mars, but the spaceships would come back because otherwise it would be way too expensive to travel to Mars. So people could choose to come back to Earth if they want, or come back to Earth for a visit or something like that.
Could you imagine the first baby born on Mars?
Right, that'd be huge.
That would be freaky,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of pressure for that poor kid.
Right.
He'd be
The
a Martian.
first Martian.
The first Martian!
That's right.
Would you go to Mars?
Yeah, I would like to go to Mars. But the reason for SpaceX is to enable anyone who goes to Mars, or anyone who wants to go to Mars. So we want to enable people to go to Mars.
You know, governments or the world government would, or United Nations or something like that would pay to get the people over there. Because SpaceX is a for-profit company, obviously. So
SpaceX is with the goal of advancing rocket technology so that eventually we could travel to Mars. And establish a base on Mars and make life multiplanetary, because I think that's one of the most important things that we could accomplish. In fact, I think it's important enough that it would actually fit on the scale of evolution itself. If you consider the major elements on the scale of evolution as being the advent of single-celled life, multicellular life, differentiation of plants and animals, life going from the oceans to land, mammals and consciousness, those are probably the big ones. But I think on that scale would also fit life becoming multiplanetary for the first time. I think it's perhaps at least as important as life going from the oceans to land. And it would, I think, preserve the light of consciousness. The consciousness, the probability of consciousness existing for a long time would be much greater if we were on two planets. If something catastrophic were to happen to Earth, then it would, life would still exist on another planet.
Right.
I mean, let's say there was a giant meteor impact or a super volcano, or we had sort of a massive nuclear war on Earth, or some super virus.
Right.
I mean, there could be something that doesn't necessarily initially destroy human civilization, but knocks it back to a much lower technology level.
Right.
And then there's sort of a decline to eventual extinction.
So I totally believe in science. I mean, science isn't something you believe in; it's something that just is. But you had referenced kind of the reverse climate change. But what drives me crazy is the climate change deniers. And what is up with that? Is it just become so politicized that they just have stopped believing scientists? That's what drives me crazy, is that people don't believe scientific reports. They believe conservative AM radio disc jockeys and certain, Fox News reporters instead of scientists.
Right. I mean, I think it's problematic, and I think often the debate is phrased in the wrong way. Because they'll often say, well, how do we know for certain that CO2 emissions cause global warming? And if you ask a scientist, do you know anything for certain? They will generally say, well, no, we don't know for certain, or we know hardly anything for certain.
Right.
But that's not the right question. The question is really, do we know that it won't cause global warming? And we absolutely do not know it won't cause global warming. In fact, it's quite the overwhelming opinion among the scientific community is that CO2 is causing global warming.
Mm-hmm.
And given that we will run out of oil anyway and must find a sustainable means of generating energy and consuming energy,
mm-hmm.
It makes no sense to run this experiment. We're going to run out of oil and coal. These are finite resources.
Sure.
So.
Why not look for those alternate resources and and also potentially heal the planet's atmosphere at a much faster rate?
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense to put trillions of tons of CO2 in the atmosphere and see what happens, which could be catastrophic, when we have to find a non hydrocarbon based way of generating and consuming energy anyway.
Now,
so it's just a dumb experiment.
Now, you have said that there are three main problems that you are focused on the most. What are those three?
Right. So, well, there were three. When I was in college, I thought there were three things that would most affect the future of humanity, and those were the internet, sustainable energy, and space exploration.
So those three things they're not problems per se, but they're the three things that will affect humanity the most.
Right, exactly. The things that would, and in a good
Internet,
way, if they're solved right. Yeah.
Internet, energy, and space exploration.
Yeah, and specifically extending life beyond Earth.
Now, why did you choose those three things and not healthcare, education, and the environment?
So, sustainable energy is about the environment. It's the biggest environmental issue that we face.
Good point.
So, with respect to healthcare, the real problem is not curing any one particular disease. It's actually that we have a natural kind of age limit, if you will, which is around 80.
Mm-hmm.
That's a human being is essentially genetically programmed to die around age 80.
Mm-hmm.
And the cause of death will vary, but it's just because you're having multiple organ failure, your immune system isn't working well anymore, and you're suffering from dementia. You're just going to die around 80 on average, maybe 80. Maybe that'll creep up to the sort of 85 year level, but that's really it. In fact, if we cured all cancer, the average lifespan would only increase by like 2 years. So you just die of heart disease or organ failure.
Any number of things.
Yeah, exactly.
You just start falling apart. You get in your 70s and things just start falling apart.
Right. I mean, all creatures have a natural lifespan that is built into their DNA. So, for instance, fruit flies live I think a few weeks.
Right.
And it really doesn't matter.
Can you reprogram the DNA?
Well,
Can you get in there and do that and reprogram human beings to live to 150?
Well, see, that's essentially what would have to happen is in order to live longer, and particularly live longer in a sort of good way,
a healthy way,
healthy way,
not just decrepit living in an old folks home.
Right. I mean, you could be on life support, where you can't move and you've got one functioning neuron. That's not fun.
Right.
But so you'd have to reprogram the DNA in order to live longer in a healthy way. And so that's probably that's an area where I think there's likely to be breakthroughs, but it's going to take a while because of the sensitivity of experimenting with DNA.
Right.
So I do think that that's also an area that'll have a big effect, but it'll have more of an effect on individual lives than on humanity collectively.
Gotcha. Now, you have been called real life Tony Stark. You're inventing lots of cool new stuff. What does that feel like?
Well, I guess elements of it are true. Although, I mean, Tony Stark doesn't have 5 kids, so I get, I spend more time at like Disney World or Disneyland, really, because I'm in California, than I do, having parties and stuff. Well, I like having parties.
Seriously.
I could probably make a flying suit, but I think
you could make a flying suit.
Sure.
And you're making solar power.
Sure.
What are you thinking? Think.
Well, I mean,
Elon.
there's no strange. I mean, what would I do with a flying suit? I mean,
I could tell you 1,000 things to do with the flying suit. You fly around in it. It would look awesome.
It would look awesome. But
You could blow up things.
I'd probably be locked up.
Hey, listen. I thought that we were going to be flying around in jetpacks now.
Right.
Can you be the guy? Can you make the jetpacks, please?
I mean, people actually have made jetpacks and rocket packs.
I've seen them on YouTube, but they crash all the time.
That's the problem. See, it's like you can't have random people flying around with jetpacks because they'll crash on you.
But could you imagine the air in Los Angeles if there were jetpacks?
Right.
It would just be like, it would be swarms of gnats bumping into each other and people going,
right. I mean,
people cutting each other off. It would be awful.
If somebody crashes, you have to be constantly looking up in case somebody's with a jetpack lands on you.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, we
kind
don't
of a
need
dodgy
jetpacks.
situation.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the singularity?
Well, so the singularity is what.
What's the singularity?
That's the point where artificial intelligence exceeds human intelligence, and the reason it's called singularity, and I think Ray Kurzweil coined that term, is because after that we don't know what's going to happen. What will happen? If you've got some sort of super smart computer that's increasing into intelligence in kind of a runaway fashion.
Do you have a spiritual life?
Well, it sort of depends on what spiritual means.
So what do you think spiritual means? I mean, it is one of those words that kind of needs to be defined for everyone. Some people, it's like their religion, and it's a very specific kind of thing. For some people, it's a very vague kind of yoga and crystals and some meditation classes and stuff like that. And for me, it is the life of the human being that's beyond the physical and the material. That also is a little bit more than just thought, because we have thoughts.
Right.
But those are physical, because there's neurons that are bouncing around.
Right. I mean, maybe there's some dimension where thoughts exist or something. Because I don't, what is a thought and what is a, I mean, is it? I mean, I'm not sure what thoughts are. Whether there's some manifestation of thought in a way that is different from the physical dimensions we're aware of. And there's certainly things that we don't understand about the universe. But I'm less convinced that there's, say, some super consciousness watching over our every movement and kind of evaluating it against some criteria, and deciding whether we're going to go to one place or another when we die. I think that's unlikely.
Right. I think that's very unlikely.
Right.
Too. I personally do believe in God, but I don't define God in that way. I would define God as closer to being like science.
Right.
Or the energy, the laws that propel science, because science really quantifies. So what is it quantifying?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it does beg the question, if there is some super consciousness, where did the super consciousness come from? So I think the most likely explanation is that complexity evolved from simplicity, that the simple elements over time combined to become more complex and arrived at what we are. It's also possible, though, that we're in a simulation.
That we're in a simulation like the Matrix?
Yeah. Well, different from the Matrix, but a simulation of sorts, yeah.
Well, this whole world could be a dream.
Could be a dream, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it could be a simulation. I mean, have you ever played like these, like the advanced video games and how realistic they were getting?
I know. It is like a whole nother life.
Right.
Yeah. With the goggles and everything, and 3D and everything.
Yeah.
All of that stuff.
It could be that that's that's what we know to be Earth. Maybe we're some other creature's avatar.
You're blowing my mind. You deal with so much stuff. I mean, you deal with space travel and energy and the source of consciousness, and you're thinking about all of these giant life's big questions. What blows your mind? What gives you awe?
Well, I think that, I mean, the nature of the universe gives me awe, and just the huge expanse of the universe, and just how far away things are and how big they are, and the fact that there are things like supermassive black holes that are equal to 1 billion suns.
What about dark matter? Doesn't that freak you out too?
Yeah, and dark matter is also, I mean, dark matter and dark energy are kind of interesting, because I'm not sure what those actually are. People don't know what those actually are, and it's particularly dark energy. In fact, this is why, that may be an argument for this being a simulation, because in a simulation, you wouldn't, you could just make things be however you want. The laws don't all have to be consistent.
But that could be a great argument for heaven and earth, and it's another way of looking at it, is that this physical plane is like a video game, and we're down here thinking it's very real, just like our avatars do in Call of Duty or whatever game we're playing, and then we get unplugged in our 80s, and then we're onto some other plane or some other reality,
right,
where we go, oh, that was just a video game,
right,
that whole time, and I thought it was real.
Yeah.
What would you say to young people that want to change the world, that have big ideas? What advice could you give?
I would say, go do it. Just go out there and do it. The biggest thing I think people fail to do is that they're too afraid to try things. That they shouldn't be afraid of failing, and they should just go and do it.
Did you fail at anything that you tried?
I've lost. I've not lost a war, but I've lost battles, certainly. The first 3 flights of the Falcon 1 rocket, they crashed. So.
Wow, that must have been a big bummer.
Yeah, it was a big bummer.
Did you cry?
No.
No? I'll make you cry. With the new lightning round from SoulPancake. Do you own my book?
No, I don't.
You suck. Okay, what do you worship?
Well, I don't really worship anything, but I do devote myself to the advancement of humanity using technology.
What can technology never replace?
I think human feeling.
Are you a workaholic?
I suppose I am. I work a lot.
What fuels your creativity?
Pressure. Necessity.
What do you do to unplug and relax?
Well, I like going to the movies. I like going to parties, having dinner with friends. I go to Burning Man. That's pretty fun.
Did you go to Burning Man?
Sure.
What do you do there?
It's just like a crazy sort of Mad Max meets Vegas meets Alice in Wonderland.
Do you put on a hippie wig?
No, I usually have some kind of costume. I went as Darth Vader once.
Do you believe there's life on other planets?
I think there's a good chance that there's simple life on other planets. It's much more of a question as to whether there's complex life like consciousness.
With all the trillions of stars and all those trillions of planets, you don't think that, isn't that an arrogant statement to say we're probably the most evolved in all of the universe?
Well, no, I'm not saying that we probably are. Just I think that the chances of consciousness are much lower, particularly in our galaxy. Because we have to ask the question, if there's consciousness, where is it?
Can science and religion coexist?
Probably not.
Do you pray?
I don't. I didn't even pray when I almost died of malaria.
Wow, that's really not praying.
Right.
So you put your money where your bug spray was.
Yeah.
What's your life's big question? What's the big question you personally wrestle with?
Well, I guess I wrestled with the question of what is the question? Like from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The answer is the universe. What's the question?
One of the world's greatest entrepreneurs is here in the back of my van. What's your big ideas? How do you want to be an entrepreneur? What kind of passion or dream do you want to pursue to make the world a better place, to take humanity to the next level? Can you upload it on a video or write it down in the comments below? I'll tell you what, I'll give you a bite. Okay. You give me a Tesla.
Sounds like a good deal.
Deal?
Deal. Shit.
Yes! Score!
SoulPancake, subscribe!